We don't do a ton of Twins discussion these days because there's just not a whole lot to discuss, quite frankly.
Yep.
It's just been such a buzzkill season. And Judd, you said that Rocco Baldelli used the word rebuild at one point.
It's in Jim Souhan's column in the Star Tribune this morning.
That's what everyone wants to hear.
He used the word and basically said,
I respect it.
He said, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable. If that's what, if that's what we're going to do, I'm comfortable with it.
But he's not just floating that. That's clearly been talked about within the front office, right?
Yeah.
Well, otherwise he wouldn't be saying it.
And when you have essentially no defined pitching, upper echelon pitching for 2022, you're probably going to be in what they like to call a rebuild.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, for the younger audience, I'm gonna over explain this because Frank Viola is 61 years old, and I think there's probably a lot of people that watch us on YouTube or have discovered us through podcasts that might not have, like, I was born in 1985. I barely remember Frank Viola's career. Like, I remember him on other teams in the 90s, but not as much as a Twin. So he is one of the more legendary pitchers in Twins history. I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore of Twin starting pitchers. I think it's fair to say that.
Yep, he was great.
He was the ace of the 1987 World Series winning team. He won the Cy Young Award in the American League in 1988. So that little 2-3 year run by Frank Viola was one of the great runs in Twins history. He's 61 years old now. He is a pitching coach for an independent league team, so he's still kind of in the game. And he's on Twitter, and he has takes. Mm-hmm. And he savaged the Twins organization over the weekend. I think this might have been like Friday or Saturday, for losing touch with the human side of the game. I'm going to read you this tweet, and then I want you guys to tell me what you think. Mm-hmm. The Twins have forgotten what baseball is all about. Fundamentals, the belief in each other, the love of the daily grind. You don't have baseball people leading this attitude and approach. You have a losing organization. Wrong leadership equals no chance to succeed. I'm assuming he's talking about Derek Falvey and Thaddeus Levine.
Yep.
Your thoughts on Frank Viola savaging the Twins front office?
A couple of things. One, when did the spirit of Jack Morris inhabit Frankie V?
It's always
brain?
kind of been there with Frankie V. It's always kind of.
But this really showed it, and I believe this was a late night or early morning tweet, so there was probably some drinks involved in this one, which is fine. My thoughts are this.
Do you want the official timestamp?
Yeah.
Yep, let's hear it.
Yeah. 12:15 a.m.
Was it?
12:15 a.m.
Are you guessing?
No, I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah. 12:15 a.m.
Oh, he was tipping a few back.
Yeah.
And I think he's on the
Had a
East
couple
Coast,
Surleys.
so it's probably more like 1:15 a.m. if he's on the East Coast.
Or maybe 6. Little axe man got a little bit liquored up and thought, I don't like these Twins. But here's where I'm going to defend the Twins just a little bit here. It's easy to dump on them, and they deserve it for this season, you guys. But the reality is they did win back-to-back division titles. Now, the playoff thing is embarrassing. There is no, I'm not trying to skirt that. That is an embarrassment.
Yeah.
But I feel like the tweet was like they hired Falvey in 2016, correct? And it's been a failure, and he's not a baseball guy. He's an analytics guy. That's how the tweet felt, and that's fine if this team hadn't had success, but they have. So I could easily see analyzing or dumping on them for the failure in 2021, but like his tweet comes across like these guys have done nothing. And that, in their defense, is simply not true.
Well, that's why it's so hard to figure out here, because these guys took over a 100-loss team and pretty much overnight helped at least hire the right people and help. They helped by hiring and putting new scouting and advanced scouting reports changed drastically once these guys took over. I can tell you, like, I covered those Twins teams before Falvey and Levine, and I have had in my hand what the advanced scouting reports looked like from like 2011, 12, 13. Like once a pitcher in that clubhouse once walked up to me and said, "You're an analytics guy. I know you are. Look at these scouting reports we get." And it was like this pitcher's last 10 plate appearances, batting average again. So it was like the most primitive, basic things. And so they started implementing new analytically based and and process-based scouting reports. And I think a lot of that stuff early on helped transform this team into more of a winner. I think it helped maximize what we saw in 2019 with the Bomba Squad, the greatest home run hitting team in baseball history. But they've whiffed so badly on so many things since 2019. They've whiffed on almost every free agent pitching signing. They whiffed on all of them this year. In fact, they've whiffed on most free agents. I think Nelson Cruz was a hit. I think Josh Donaldson's kind of a push for the money. He hasn't been a disaster. The fact that he wasn't available for the playoffs last year was a problem. So, like, how did they help push this thing as high as they did for 2 years? And then why has it come crumbling down to where the manager is using a word like rebuilding in the Star Tribune 2 years after this young, vibrant nucleus was setting the Major League Baseball home run record? It is hard to wrap your arms around the last 2 or 3 years, for sure. So when I look at Viola's comments, I think like half of it is old baseball guy, doesn't understand new front offices, and is just yelling at clouds. But then I think the other half of me says there's some validity to this. Like, some of the things he's saying are things that we have also complained about, that they're only relying on analytics in certain situations and not taking into account Jose Barrios or Cody Stashak in a key moment against a really good lineup, right? It does feel like they just burn and churn pitchers. They're all just chess pieces that you can just like DFA or sign new ones or whatever, or we can look at a guy's pitch repertoire and we can tweak those pitches because he's a robot. They do tend to take a more robotic approach. Rocco takes a robotic approach as a manager in a lot of ways. Do I think they have the wrong leadership? I don't know that I'm ready to say that, but it's been very unimpressive the last 18 months or so.
Absolutely. But where I would come back at Frankie V and say, really, is this one? Terry Ryan, through and through, a baseball guy. Like, I mean, he was a baseball guy, dragged this franchise down himself. So I think Viola's complaint, while some of it has validity, is also just too broad of, I don't like this about baseball. So, and now that team's bad, and I used to play for that team, so I'm going to complain about that.
There's also a touch of, to me, there's a touch of, why haven't they asked for my opinion about some of this stuff?
Yeah,
I'm still coaching in baseball. I would
the
love
old,
to.
You know, Bert had that too. You know, I'm a Hall of Famer. Why aren't you asking me? Well, because you're going to tell them like their stats and stuff like that, and then you're going to circle them, and it's not going to be exciting or helpful, Bert. But
Bert, stop circling people.
Yeah.
This is a pitching development meeting.
Bert, okay,
you are hereby circled.
Oh,
no, Bert.
Okay, let's talk pitching prospects. What can you tell us about your thoughts about this guy? Well, he was 3-2 last year with a 6.7 ERA.
Drafted
while
in the
pitching
5th round
for Saris. Yeah, he's 6'3", throws hard, 217 pounds from Missoula, Montana. What else do you need to know? That didn't help us, Bert.
Thank you, Bert.
Yeah. So I think that this is largely it's easy to pick on them now, because there is a discussion to be had here that I would love to hear, and I would love to find out what's happened here. Like, what's going on? How do you employ? I mean, we know for a fact Falvey has hired how many people and installed how many systems that are probably costing millions of dollars, right? So I would love to know what's happened here. Like, that's a great question. But I think just to say they don't get people and they don't, and Phil, it's also not true. I go back to the conversation when we sat down with Derek 3 or 4 years back now in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
He is a very thoughtful, like, he is not, one, he's clearly not dumb, but two, he sort of gets people. Like,
I agree with that.
Like, we had a conversation that it was not like talking to, let's see, I don't want to pick on people and name names, but I'll throw one out. Rick Spielman. Like, Rick Spielman is very robotic about everything. He won't tell you what time of day it is. He's afraid that you're going to steal his ideas for breakfast. Falvey's a guy who will actually have a conversation. So I would love to know how we got here, but I think just saying he doesn't get it and it's this new school stuff sucks. It's a little bit too much for me.
Yeah. What about you, Dex?
I think also when he's talking about leadership, wrong leadership equals no chance to succeed. I do wonder if he's taking a subtle shot just at the players in that clubhouse, i.e. Josh Donaldson, people not also rising, younger players not rising up to the occasion, Miguel Sano needing to be basically mentored by Nelson Cruz the entire time. Like, yes, there are some times where young guys need a little kick in the rear end or need some guidance for that matter, but you also need other young players eventually step up and be leaders. So I totally get that it probably is more of a direct shot at Falvey and Levine and this current brass with Baldelli, but I do also wonder if he's also talking about the players on this team, because there is just a weird, like, I like Josh Donaldson. I do like him. He is a hard-ass player, and I think the Twins need a player like his demeanor that they've lacked for years and years, but you also need, again, a little awareness sometimes of the situations. And I wonder, too, if Frankie V is more talking about the players than he is necessarily the management and ownership.
The Sano thing is, I think he's talking about management, but I agree with your point about, okay, at some point, who are the players stepping up and drawing a line in the sand and saying, like, okay, well, we're not gonna let a bad April derail everything, right? We're not gonna let a couple bad weeks, and that's like. It's like they had a couple bad weeks with some COVID, and no one stepped up aside from Nelson Cruz to lead this team. Let's look at some of the players that are in their prime and a core part of this club. I think Buxton tends to be a leader by example, but he's never on the field. The guy's played 28 games all season or whatever it is, and he makes a huge difference when he's on the field, but it's hard to lead when you're sitting in the cold tub or on the injured list for 5 months out of every season. Max Kepler's not a leader. He's mostly quiet. He's underperforming largely.
He's a bust.
Yeah.
He is a bust as a player.
Jorge Polanco, I think, is again a leader by example. I don't think he's a vocal guy.
Right.
He's more of, and he's having a really good season, but he's not like clubhouse culture guy as much. Miguel Sano, Declan nailed it. Miguel Sano is a 28-year-old who still needs mentors. Not that you can't have mentors in your 20s, but as a baseball player, he's been a professional baseball player for 12 years, and it's like a big deal that Nelson Cruz, his mentor, is leaving, and then he decides to flip the switch and start hitting again the minute Nelson Cruz goes away. People are all excited about, look at Miguel Sano the last month. Well, where was that in April and May when the team needed you to be the leader in that lineup while things were falling down?
Still strikes out a ton, too.
So I don't know that they certainly don't have. By the way, I think it might have been Frank Viola's wife was also chiming in on this Twitter thread. I don't know if I can find it in time, but there were other Violas that were chiming in on this Twitter thread.
How many Violas are?
There's a lot of Violas.
Smash fest. Yeah.
But one of the women in the thread, last name Viola, was referencing the heartbeat of the World Series winning teams, and there's not a Kirby Puckett type force in that clubhouse. Well, yeah, I mean, Kirby Puckett's one of the great players of a generation, but she's right. I mean, they don't have a hop on my back, everybody, this is my team and I am going to help set the culture here. Who is that on this team? It wasn't Barrios. He was quiet.
They traded Cruz.
It's not Donaldson, really.
And Cruz was that guy, but I mean, he's gone now because they stunk.
But he was always a mercenary too. Even if he was that guy, he was 40 and he was on 1-year contracts.
But I mean, in 2019, there was no question that was his clubhouse and that was his team, and guys loved him and respected him. I mean, that was what they're talking about. But they traded him, and they should have, because they stunk. The one thing that I will say about this entire thing, and where I don't think it's plausible to be like, well, just go into a rebuild and we'll see in 5 years or 4 years, is this one. And here's where I'll defend the players currently a bit. Now, it's their fault that the team stunk as well, so I'm not giving them a free pass. But go back, gentlemen, and look at the starters, and they won 2 of these games. The Twins trotted out this weekend. They trotted out guys like Griffin Jacks yesterday.
Barnes.
I was there, which was terrible. Charlie Barnes, who they immediately dispatched. And on Friday night, Andrew Albers, in his 3rd stint since, I believe, 2013 with this team.
He was pretty good.
Yeah, 7 years ago.
He pitched pretty well.
Yeah, and it was
he
a
did
great
pitch
this
on-
weekend.
and he
And
pitched
And you know
this
what?
last weekend, yeah.
It was a great story for which Terry Ryan deserved to get ripped at the time, and the current regime deserves to be ripped as well. My point being is, if we don't see some pitching here soon, that's a whole new alarm. And we've talked about this. But I mean, these guys were hired for their pitching expertise. And when you're throwing out and all due respect to them and their families and their spouses, when you're throwing out the seemingly baseball garbage that's being thrown out here,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to be pitching guys. I'm a pitching person, damn it. You know, when you're
Why can't you people see that?
why can't you people see I'm a pitching person? I've got a new game. But yeah, this is where I have a big problem here, because you were hired with this specific, just wait till the floodgates of pitching open, and Andrew Albers is in the equation.
The other thing too is so you mentioned the pitching, and Barrios is now gone in large part because this team was so bad in April and May. They just felt like, all right, if he's not going to resign, we'll just do it now. But some of the guys that are coming up, Bailey Ober, Griffin Jacks, Charlie Barnes, like these dudes are 25, 26 years old. Okay.
Yes.
They've been in the minors for a handful of years. They've been able to develop to some extent. I think Ober to me shows the most potential to be like a number 4 starter in your rotation next year.
Great.
But all these guys are coming up. They're not 21, so it's not like they're being called up and they're over their heads because they were rushed through the system. They're in their mid-20s and they're getting shellacked. Like Griffin Jacks had one really good start with 10 strikeouts or something. But for the most part, these guys have 7 ERAs and they're just getting smoked in the bigs. And but just be a little bit more patient. Joe Ryan's going to come up, and the Rays developed him. But like Joe Ryan's coming up, and Joe Ryan might be really good. He was developed by the Rays. And so good on you for identifying Joe Ryan and getting him over here. Of course, it happened because your team underachieved so badly that you had to trade your ace for Joe Ryan, right? So I think
No, it's Cruz.
Cruz for Joe Ryan.
Yeah, but still,
Punishment though, ace in the hole.
Yeah.
he
Lack of
was
better
the guy
word.
you liked.
So I think like when I'm looking at but there's going to be another wave here coming. No. Like the wave arrived in 2018-19. That was the wave. Like that was supposed to be like a 5-year window. And the part of the reason why you weren't more aggressive at the trade deadline in 2019 is because you didn't want to cut off a year or two of your future. You don't want to trade a top prospect or two that could help you add on to this window. And if Rocco's use of the word rebuild is correct, it makes not being more aggressive at the 2019 trade deadline or sometime in the offseason to get more pitchers in here even more egregious.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at. Like I'm always excited for Twins prospects, but this is the least. I can't go there mentally now. Like, are you guys serious?
Certain needs. Like it wasn't hard to figure out what does this team need, and you didn't come close to addressing them. And then you got in one trade Sam Dyson back, who not only turned out to be a terrible dude, but was injured, damaged goods. That's embarrassing. That's just embarrassing. So Frank Viola's, I get his venom, and I don't disagree. I think it's a little bit misguided. But I also think that if this team is going to be like, well, you just wait, sit back now and wait. That's not how this was supposed to go.
Yeah. And then one more thought on this, and then the Vikings always reign supreme in terms of the attention of fans, and like if you have a limited budget for where you're going to spend your money as a fan, the Vikings are always number one.
Sure.
But the Wild with Kaprizov, assuming they get a deal done, the Timberwolves have some exciting things brewing. The Lynx are always winning. Minnesota United, it's like Target Field's not new anymore. Mm-hmm. If the Twins enter a rebuild, as Rocco used that word in the Star Tribune, they run the risk. Like, they're already losing a ton of relevance, and baseball is losing relevance relative to the rest of the leagues and young audiences. I shudder to think what it would look like at Target Field the next 3 years if they enter an actual rebuild.
Oh,
that would
it's going to be empty
That would
again.
be a disaster.
Unless the Brewers are there, in which case the ballpark will be filled with Wisconsin sports fans who chant, "Let's go Brewers" incessantly, while Twins fans try and boo and then just give up.
Yeah,
There's
how many pairs of cargo shorts and jerseys, Ryan Braun jerseys, did you see walking around Target Field this weekend?
I saw some Yelich's. I saw some throwback stuff. I don't think
Some Corey
I
Hart.
didn't see Braun. I didn't see Braun stuff. I think they're like, Corey Hart.
I miss Corey Hart. What a
Me
great
too.
Corey Hart was great.
player.
Hey,
Anyway.
quickly, do you want to hear Mrs. Viola's tweet that Frank Viola retweeted?
Is this Frank's wife?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Confirmed. This is her tweet, replying to her husband's tweet. Leadership begets leadership. What is the organizational mantra? The Twins of the 80s and 90s were built upon fundamentals, team chemistry. Players arrived early and left late because they loved being there. Analytics won't replace hard work and a big heart. Ask Kirby Puckett. So I do think it's married between the players and the leadership that the Viola family clearly is ensuing here.
I mean,
Is she aware of the fact that the Twins of the early 80s were absolutely awful, and the Twins for the majority starting in 1993 of the 90s were also terrible?
I think she's referring specifically to like
I know, but then
the
let's
lead
not,
up to 87
then-
and then
yeah.
92, 93.
But then let's not say don't make it sound like there was a 20-year run of greatness and Metropolitan
Listen, the
Stadium
1997 Twins also stayed long, okay? They loved hanging out with each other.
You know why? Because they were getting drunk. Because there was more beer in the clubhouse then. I believe beer in the clubhouse is more frowned upon now than it used to be.
Yeah. Why do you think why do you think players weren't coming home until 8 hours after the game? Because they were getting free beer.
Yeah. No, Phil, you don't understand. They were working on their fundamentals. Bunting.
More bunting. That's what we need. We just need more bunting. By
Get
the
him over,
Minnesota Twins.
Tommy. Get him over. That's a great pat.
All right, that's it for us here on this Monday episode of Mackey and Judd. Be sure to check out Royce Unchained with Judd live from the State Fair today. You guys are gonna fingers crossed. I think there's a lot of things technologically and
Nah, be fine.
logistically that could prevent that
It's
from
a
happening.
podcast. I know. It's gonna happen.
Are we doing it?
Yeah.
Declan, are we good to go?
I know Pat loves the
I'm
fair.
gonna
so-
leave. I'm gonna leave if this isn't gonna work.
I need my gizmo. Where is it?
Dude, a gizmo would be worth walking up that hill for sure.
It
All
would.
right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Mackey and Judd, thanks for hanging out with us.